Hello, my dears. Welcome back. How is it going for you guys? Here it is, or right now, rather, is the 20th of August, 2025. I've been away the whole month of July, and I don't know about you, but for me, the more the years go by, the more difficult I find it to just go back on track, adjust to the time zone. I guess it's just aging, or more so that I've been a bit floating for the past month and a half. And I want to say, if that's your case too, that's absolutely fine. If you are rocking it in your business, in everything that you're doing, that's also absolutely amazing. And I cannot wait to catch up more with you. And I'd like today to bring a topic that, well, initially I was thinking of recording this just for a few clients of mine. But then when I started to write some notes, I thought, you know what, this is a topic that is so common to so many people that I'd like to make it available to more people. So I'm recording this as a podcast episode, just a nice way to resume and to come back to one of the things that I really love doing. So today, the topic is the feminine cycle. And first of all, if you are a woman, if you do have a physical womb, so that applies absolutely perfectly to you. But even though you're not a woman or you do not have a physical womb, this is a topic that you're going to have to deal with one way or another through your partner, through your daughter, through your friends. So it's even maybe more so interesting if you are not a woman, but this is something for you to tell me. So the main point here that I'd like to bring up is to give you a perspective about the feminine cycle as something that, well, you tell me if that's your case, but in my case, for most of my life, I've seen that as an inconvenience. I've seen my cycle, my period, my menstruation as something to kind of be ashamed of, even though nothing really in my upbringing or in my culture or in my education really told me specifically to be ashamed of that. And why I'm saying that is because I grew up in a pretty open, forward-thinking country, which is France. And I don't know where you grew up. I don't know what was your environment as you were growing up, but I do know that some countries really specifically, openly shame you about that topic. And I'm so blessed and lucky to have had the chance to grow up in a country where nothing really was a taboo. But even then, the cycle is not something that we really talk about. At least it wasn't my case, but I'd love to have your perspective if it was any different, especially if we lived in or grew up in the same kind of places. So it wasn't until a few years ago that I really started to see my cycle as a source of power and not something that was an inconvenience, something that will interfere with my life. So I don't know what's your situation, but I do know from discussing with many women that your cycle could be seen really as something that is to work against and not in harmony with. And this is why I see a lot more programs that are really focusing specifically on synchronizing your cycle with everything that you do in life. Now, this is not what I do. This is not my area of focus, but as a feminine embodiment coach and as someone who work a lot with women, this is just naturally coming up in my sessions. And so I thought I'd like to share a bit of insight about how to live in harmony with your cycle. And this might be something that you're already doing. If so, that's amazing. Or that might be something that you already kind of know a little bit about, but I'm not sure how to put that in practice. So I'll give you some practical tips towards the end of this episode. But to get started, I'd like to just share my experience with you so you also know where I'm coming from. And I'll also share a bit more of a very feminine embodiment perspective on that topic. Right. So to start with, I grew up in France, and I'd like to say that my first memory of my cycle, and by that, I'm going to specifically focus on my menstruation. Now, I want to put a little side note here. I don't know how comfortable or uncomfortable you are just hearing about that topic. If you are quite uncomfortable, this would be my first question for you. Why is that? is that like myself, you have been used and habituated to kind of look away or feel like, oh no, this is not a topic we should openly talk about. Like, this is taboo, this is too intimate. Is that the case? And I'm not here to judge or to say it's fine, you can speak about everything, but this is part of life. This is literally part of life. This is literally how life can start. And therefore, my first question would be, why is that some of us feel ashamed to talk about this topic, right? So when I was younger, way much younger, and I'd like to say 15, if not younger, I had my period. To be honest, I don't even remember. This is so terrible. At what age I had my first period? I like to say between 13 and 14 years old. And I think as young as when I was 15, I started to take the pill, the contraceptive pill. Yeah, of course, like further down the line, that was also had the purpose to prevent any unwanted pregnancy. But the first reason why this has been introduced to me and really pitched to me was in order to control, and I'm really putting quotes, yeah, like, how do you call that? Quotation, quote mark, because that's the first thing. One of my first interaction or thought with my cycle and my menstruation in specific, the first intention that I remember having around that was to control it, even before really understanding it. Because at 14, 15 years old, what I'm pretty sure is that I didn't know anything about the cycle, the different phases, the ovulation, the menstruation, the pre-ovulation, the post-ovulation, and everything that this would mean in terms of vitality, in terms of energy, in terms of what my body would need at any point of my cycle. I had zero clue. And this is just very recent that I started to discover, oh, our body works in season. How beautiful, how magical, how amazing. Back then, and I'm talking like, again, like 20, 30 years ago, I had zero clue. So the only things that was really obvious to me is that every now and then I would bleed, and this bleed and this bleeding would be an inconvenience, and I'll have to do everything that I can to hide it, to control it. And that specific pill that I started to take, I remember they call it micro dosage, and you would take it continuously so you don't forget it. So every day of the month of the year, you'll be popping a pill, leaving a few placebo type of pills, so as for you to have few days of bleeding. And later I learned that this bleeding is not even a real period, it's just a way for your body to release. But it was never really like following my cycle. It was basically suppressing it, controlling it, changing it. And this is how I lived for many years. Now, if this is something that you are yourself going through, if you are taking the contraceptive pill for whatever reason that might be, I'm not here to say it's good, it's not good. What I'm saying, and I hope you hear me out, is that the reason why I started to take it and what pushed me to do that and the mindset I was in when I did was me being clueless, me not understanding my body before making that decision. And this is really the catch here. Today, as a 40 plus year old woman, I might take the pill. I don't. I use another type of contraception. That's for another day. But I might have taken the decision to do that because I would say, based on all the things that I'm considering, this happens to be the best solution. Amazing. This would be an aligned, embodied choice. Back then, 20 years ago, it wasn't. 25 years ago, it wasn't at all. And years just went by like that. And what happened is that I know a lot of girls back then were also taking the pills. Some of them, they were taking it to control their acne because obviously it would have an effect on your hormones, right? So what I'm saying is sometimes in many occasions for a lot of us, we do things with a specific intention, but we really disregard a lot of other things, right? And in that specific case, for me, my cycle meant something to be controlled, something to be kind of ashamed of, and something that I would actually not really talk about, and not something that I would honor. I know in some cultures, when a girl becomes a woman, there is some sort of ceremony, rituals. I don't know if that's something that you have experienced. I would love to hear about that. It wasn't the case at all for me. And now that I think about that, I'm like, whoa, such a shame. Like it's something that I wish I had celebrated and really connect with that and understand all the many layers, right? So I'm gonna check my notes for a sec because I don't want to go round and round telling you about the same thing. To sum up, so far, for most of my life, my period has been a source of inconvenience. And it's only recently that I started to see as a source of power, a source of knowledge, and a source of really ancient wisdom that we could channel in our modern lives as well. So this is the second part of this episode, talking about your womb as creative space, as a creative center and this magical center in your body that regardless of what stage of your life you're in, whether you have a womb that's present, that's absent, whether you're bleeding, whether you're in a transition, meaning whether you are pregnant at the moment or whether you are in menopause, the woman womb is the center of life, is where creation begins. And it's where transformation happens as well, because what really differentiates us from our masculine counterpart is that we do have these fluctuations. We do have those cycles that men do not have. Their hormonal transformation happens in a very, very different way than us women. And for us, for many, many years of our life, we're going to have this cycle to continue and evolve, obviously. And there's so much power to find in there, and there's so much power to use in our favor. Now, some questions that I have for you is, how many of you have heard before that women are hormonal, women are too emotional, women are less reliable than men because of this constant waves and evolutions that our body is going through, meaning that our inherent nature is something that we somehow should fight, so it would resemble more the nature of a man, more constant, more stable, with less fluctuation, with less unpredictability. How many of you have felt that in their lives? How many of you have felt that they had somehow to ignore your body's wisdom and ignore the signs of your body and ignore your sensation, because this would be considered as weak and in a way not good enough? I for sure have been part of that, and I'm not going to say that I regret it because I didn't know better. But today, if I can just change the perspective of one person, that would be just the best thing, because we shouldn't see our nature as something to change, something we should change or something we should fight. I really believe that that type of mindset and approach can only bring you frustration and really suffering, mental, emotional, and physical suffering. And I'm going to get to that part in a bit. Now, many of us were initiated into womanhood in that way. Hiding your pads or your tampons or whatever you're using, pray for not having any drop of blood coming through your clothes, because that would be something to be ashamed about. Don't talk about it and take that pill to make it disappear. So a lot of us grew up believing that this is a messy part and that these messy parts were like so inconvenient. And instead of seeing those like really the blueprint of our vitality and just our nature. And so talking about some physical pain that some of us might have endured, and this is for sure my case. Earlier, like years ago and even months ago, I was still sharing on my Instagram moments where I was in deep physical pain, so much so that I couldn't get out of bed. On some months that my husband would have to drag me to the hospital because I was in such pain. And this is what a lot of us call premenstrual syndrome or symptoms. So it's all this physical pain that usually comes a few days before your period comes, or during, or sometimes even after, which is usually related to this huge change of hormone in your body, which comes like a shock to your body, in addition to maybe some lifestyle, let's say, things that are not matching your nature. If, let's say, you're making choices that are not the best for you, this definitely is going to emphasize those symptoms. And that was my case for many years. I used to have cramps, yes, but huge migraines. Like I couldn't open my eyes. I would just want to throw up. Like the pain was so intense. And month after month, I thought this cannot be how I live my life until maybe my period disappears. And who knows when menopause comes, what else is going to come up. And month after month after month, I tried so many different things. I tried supplementing, I tried medication, I tried acupuncture, I tried a lot of different things. Some helped, but it was usually temporary. And I'm touching wood right now. It's been maybe 5-6 months that I have pain-free menstruation, which is related to a combination of factors. One being that, yes, I keep adapting my lifestyle. Nutrition is a big thing. So this is not really a topic of today, but as some of you might know, I remove almost all sorts of sugar from my diet. I have also removed gluten from my diet already for many months now. And I cannot say that this is the reason why I'm feeling better or why my migraines are gone, but I'm sure because I can feel that this is part of the improvement. Taking supplements as well that have been prescribed by my naturopath doctor. So this is another thing. And the third factor would be that I've started to listen to my body more. So what I have started to do months ago is to just sync my period with my calendar. And now I'm talking about menstruation. I'm going to talk about the other phases of your cycle in a bit. But the menstruation part is definitely a huge one because this is usually the most painful one and the most challenging one to navigate. And if this is your case, I so hear you and I've been there. So just on my smartphone, on my iPhone, I'm just following when my period is coming. And this is how I started, just at least to know and to predict next month, when is that going to happen? And for a few months, I just started by blocking those days. No meeting, nothing planned. And I would just go according to how I feel. Now, I understand that if you work in a corporate job, this is not something you can really do. You cannot just like disappear for a few days. I hear that. But maybe you can decide if you have an important presentation or a meeting, if you can just try to keep them out of this few days window as much as you can and not pack your schedule too much. Even the very intense exercise, physical exercise, is that the best time to do that? Or would you rather do that at some other time? So this is just like managing this with the possibility of your own lifestyle and your own logistics and all of that. Like we all always have to be realistic, right? But I started with doing this. That helped me to think that, okay, if on those days I feel like shit like I usually do, I can just rest. And just to know this took off a lot of pressure, thinking, why? Why do I need to pretend that life should be as usual when it is not? When there's this things happening in my body that requires more energy, that requires me to rest more, that requires me to nourish my body in a different way, then why should I just hustle like everybody else when I do know that this is not what makes me feel good and alive? So I started to just make peace with that idea and welcome that idea that it is okay to rest. It is okay to space my meetings out. It is okay not to schedule any lunch or dinner or event. It is okay because your body needs that. So if this is something that feels like, oh yeah, I understand what she's talking about, I actually think that would be beneficial for me, then just do it. Start with this. So when I started to do this, on the first month, I really enjoyed that. And I stayed in bed more. I don't like taking naps, but I would be in bed, watch something, write down things and not put pressure on myself to really produce anything. And I later realized that there's a reason why it felt good to do that. I want to talk to you about the different seasons and the different parts of your cycle. Now, you might be aware of them, you might not. So that's going to be a refresher or something completely new at best. So I want you to start seeing your cycle as a map to your power and to understand that knowing what part of your cycle you're in is going to help you to live your life a lot more in alignment and a lot more embodied and a lot more inspired as well. So we refer to the four part of the feminine cycle. We compare them to the seasons, right? So I was talking about your menstruation, so your bleed phase, your moon phase. This is associated to winter. So winter is the season where you really release, you get rid of what is no longer serving you. That's a good moment for introspection as well. And as opposed to other seasons where you're going to be more in action, where you're going to feel like on fire, like you have a lot of creative juice coming in and you want to get shit done, winter is usually not the time for that. So full disclosure, I'm in my bleed phase at the moment. So if I was to follow 100% the fact that, oh, that's my winter and this is not my best time to create, I wouldn't be recording anything right now. But there are so many different ways of seeing this. This episode of podcast, which initially was supposed to be just an audio tool, it's been 2 months that I had planned to do it and then I didn't. So for me, that was really kind of on my to-do list of things that I carried forward from June until now and things that I really want to let go as well and check those boxes. So this is really what it is for me right now. So I'm not big on recording for these few days, but it's more about releasing, right? So other things, just to give you some examples, other things that I'm doing at the moment is I use Canva. I don't know if you're familiar with that platform. I use Canva to create posts or anything that is a bit like kind of design oriented. And I had a lot of things there that I'm not using anymore. A lot of pictures that I have uploaded there, a lot of old presentation when I was doing another job that are still there. And I saw that I was starting to run out of space because I'm using the free version for now. And I'm like, okay, this is on my mind that I just want to remove stuff. I just want to delete things that do no longer serve me, that I have no use for. So this is the kind of things that I do. And yes, sometimes it doesn't feel really productive because I'm not producing anything. But when comes the moment that I want to start to create a new PDF or new presentation or new artwork, then I'll have the space, I'll have the clarity, is not going to be all cluttered. And I'm going to be so thankful for this winter because I've done that work at that moment. It's work that doesn't require a lot of focus. It doesn't require a lot of energy, but it's important to do and it takes time as well. Things like that, like clearing your computer, clearing your home, removing, like going through your drawers and just getting rid of stuff. These kind of things are, for me, what I associate with the bleed phase and the winter phase. In other words, it could as well be, if you're running a business, just checking in with yourself, seeing maybe programs that you have, which are the programs that no longer feel aligned and you want to stop selling, like this kind of things. What are the topics that do not feel aligned with you anymore and you maybe don't want to talk about that anymore? Having those kind of introspection and reflection. So that's the first phase, the bleed phase and winter. The second would be your pre-ovulation phase, which is your spring, which is associated with the renewal. It's the moment where you plant seeds. So it is what it is. It is the moment when you start to have ideas and you really want to write them down. You want to start getting creative. You want to see new opportunities for the future. You want to start planning in all aspects of your life. So think about it as spring, where things start to bloom. And that's your pre-ovulation. And you'll feel like energy coming back after in between the pre-ovulation and your ovulation phase, which is your summer. So this phase is associated with the moment when you get shit done. This is really the moment where you feel the most radiant, the most confident, the moment when you really want to get things going, when you have more creativity, when you have more flow, when things come to you more naturally, when it's really heating up, like your inner fire is burning, let's say the strongest. And that's a perfect moment to get things done. Meetings, creating presentations, let's say like going out to some events, recording if this is what you do, this kind of things. And of course, I don't know what it is that you do, if you work, if you don't work, what kind of work you're doing, but just try to apply that into your own circumstances. But it's going to be pretty similar, I'm sure, to what I've just said. And then your last phase, which is your premenstrual. So this is your fall, this is your autumn, and this is usually when you start to kind of retract yourself a little bit. Think about fall, where the leaves start to fall. So they're still there, but they're starting to fall to make room for a more, let's say, quiet time of the year, the winter. So it's really pulling back a little bit, assessing maybe what you've just done, taking the time to reflect in that sense. And again, restart with the winter and the spring and the summer, and on and on and on and on. And then of course, every cycle, every month is going to be different depending what age you are, whether you're 25, 55. What do I know is also going to look different depending on your family situation, is going to be different. But this is kind of the overall understanding on the different phases of your cycle and how you can use that to your advantage. Now, I don't want you to feel pressure and think, oh shit, now another thing I need to incorporate into what I'm trying to do already. It's not like that. It's more so to have the understanding and see that, oh, in some situation where you plan for your schedule, you plan that, okay, on that day, that's the day when I want to get most of my shit done. But then it happened to be your bleed phase and you start to feel bad that, why can't I commit? Why can't I just show up to do the things that I told myself I would? This would be a very masculine way of thinking that, oh, I said I'm going to do this, I'm going to stick to that. I hear that, and sometimes it's great because this is definitely boosting your confidence. You say you're going to do something and you do it, but it's really, as a woman, it's really for you to take a few steps back and think, okay, why am I not feeling into it? And it's not about rethinking the whole thing like, I thought that this was right for me. Why is it not? It's just a matter of adjusting your schedule, your planning according to your cycle, and just having this love and that compassion for yourself. That is not because you're lazy, is not because you didn't plan right, is not because you're not aligned with what you're doing anymore. It might just be that your body needs something else. So what would you rather do? Try to force it, but then not be happy with the result and drag yourself and feel resentful to some extent? Or just take a few steps back and reshuffle things in a different order, slowly. That's a question for you. There's no right or wrong answer, but just try. Because for me, one thing that I've learned in the recent years is that you can think, you can plan as much as you want, but if you don't get started experimenting in the real world, you're never going to know if it's going to work or not, right? So if you're a bit of a perfectionist, like I used to be, I tend to think that something is better done than planned perfectly, but not done. So let me know if this is making sense to you right now. So I feel I've already given you some practical tips on how to plan your month, your week according to your own cycle. But I'd like as well to add a few things about tracking and also things that you can ask yourself. So tracking, as I was saying earlier, for me really started with the menstruation. And I think this is, like I said, the most critical phase. So if there's one moment of your cycle you should track, I think that's this one. But as you develop this awareness and you start to feel that, okay, I can actually be in sync more and not in control, I'm sure you will enjoy at any time of the month know exactly where you're at. So this is one thing. And then protecting your bleed, I think, is very important as well. Protecting that time of the month and have this kind of no guilt policy for yourself and the people around you, holding these boundaries that if you need your rest, if you need to reschedule, like then do it. And then next month you'll plan better in advance. And then the third thing that I really wanted to say is to tell you that as women, we have often heard that our nature was not to be trusted by ourselves and by the rest of the world. And I don't know if some of you still feel that in the work environment or anywhere else, they still feel that pressure. I know it is real. And I know it's not possible to change people's opinion or expectations about you. And if you're an overachiever and somebody who really likes and thrives when you get shit done, I like to say that what I'm sharing with you today is not to diminish that, is not to take that power away from you, but more so to give you that awareness that there are maybe a better way to do it than what you've been doing all along, if that's what you were doing, and follow the waves of your cycle. I think this is really the main key takeaway, is we are not built and created in the same way as men. And therefore, we shouldn't expect for ourselves or let people expect from us that we could have this kind of steady flow of energy. And we might have some downtime and some lows, but our highs to me could be like so much higher than what they are at the moment when we try to always be constant, because we pull from that empty tank. But imagine pulling from a refueled tank. Like, that's going to be just epic. So I hope that episode made sense to you. I would love to hear your experience, your feedback. Also, let me know if there are any topic that you'd like to explore with me, if there are any more practical tools that you like as well. And if not, I'll talk to you in the next episode. And as a reminder, I have my calendar open. I have reopened it for September onwards for my coaching. So what you're seeing on my website at the moment at thesensescompany.com is going to change slightly in the next few months, because I have more programs coming up. But what I love to do is one-on-one coaching. And this is really my goal at the moment, and the way that I love to work with women. Have this VIP container where you come and you share with me what it is that you're going through, what it is that is giving you challenge, and we take it from there. But I also have a few topics that are so dear in my life. One being Living Embodied. It's going to be a program that's a lot more practical. And the other one would be about confidence, because to me, if women had more self-confidence, the world would be such a better place. And this is my role, this is my mission, to help you achieve just that. All right, my dears, I thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you are all well, and I'll talk to you again very, very soon.